it's Sophia, and welcome to my final project, Emotional Damage, the math game that insults you back. This choose your ending roleplay game is completely based around my anxiety around finals. So the user will be playing a student preparing to take a math test. Starting off on an aesthetic thumbnail and a menu, the user must pass 6 levels: Fast Math, Test Preparation, Evil Auntie, Snack Time, The Test, and Mother. If they do, they get a wholesome ending card, which tells them they have reached the end. Otherwise, you face death. And to make matters more complicated, the user can unlock 2 side levels of Fight in level 3 or Cheat in level 5. So those are going to come up as well. Let's begin. First, you're going to need 5 modules: Colorama, From Colorama 4, OS, Random, and Time. I'll explain how we use them later. The next piece is my research component. I wanted colorful text, so I went to studytonight.com and I found I could use Colorama, this module that we imported right here, to make colorful text. Since I did not want to write the full function every time I wanted to call colorful text, I made variables to represent each color. So red, yellow, green, blue, magenta, and white. Underneath that is our needed list called choices. Since for the main part the user navigates through the levels by choosing one of 4 preset options, choices represents the acceptable inputs that are used in the rest of the code. The function clear clears the console, which is another research component that really prevents me from going insane from seeing my code printing down and off the console. I found the code on DefStack, which allows us to interact with the operating system, which is why we imported OS. The conditional prints the proper commands to clear the screen. If the user is on Windows, it will create a command variable with the value being equal to the string CLS. Otherwise, the command variable equals the string clear. Then we pop that bad boy as a parameter into our OS system function, which will clear the screen as we call the function. The function thumbnail makes the thumbnail or the opening screen. Now I like the old school feel of printing stuff on the console, and I didn't really like how the turtle window stayed open after I stopped using my logo. So I decided to make my logo a variable equal to a multi-line string of Unicode characters. The first line is offset to print at the very top of the screen, and the rest has no indent, so that will print as close as possible to the left-hand side of the console. There's a print statement with the program slogan underneath, as well as actually printing the logo. Then we have a variable start that equals the user's input. When the user enters anything, it will relate to the conditional that start does not equal none, and it clears the screen and goes to menu. And just to point out, enter will be blue in our user prompts because of the color variable I put in the string. That's how the color variables are used. Next up, we have the function death, which defines the way to die. Death has a parameter type, which will allow us to call the function death to give specific messages, which you can see in the conditional below. If the type equals any of these strings, it will print the corresponding insults, go to a general delay of the program to allow the user to read the message, clear the console, and restart the game at the main menu. And just to point out, under level choice, we have a chance component. If a random integer generator outputs 1, you get one message. If not, you get another. You're going to see this chance component come up a few times in our code, and it uses the same technique. The function menu defines the menu. It allows the user to think that they can choose a difficulty level. But the only choice that doesn't lead to death is emotional damage. I want the menu to have a drop-down appearance. So the variable difficulty equals a user input when the prompt being a multi-line string with each acceptable option being on a different line. This conditional runs the outcome of each option. I want the user to input the integers of 1, 2, 3, or 4. So the conditional switches the difficulty into an integer. If they choose anything less than 4, the user will face death type level choice. If they input 4, they will move on to the next level. The conditional is inside a try and except loop because we are trying to transform difficulty into an integer. If the user, say, mistakenly types E, the program would stop and an error code would appear because of the wrong answer. However, the try and except block counteracts that. because it first tries to make difficulty an integer, and if it can be, it will run through the conditionals we just discussed. And if not, or if it is not inside the values listed inside the list choices, it will go to the except block, where it will keep printing unknown input and resetting the menu until it receives a valid input. You're going to see this format a lot. Now that we covered that, let's go on to level 1, fast math, where the goal is to answer 1 plus 1 correctly and in under 2 seconds. We're going to print the level title and instructions and make a variable called fast math that is equal to the user input to the prompt, quick, what's 1 plus 1? To see if the user answers in under 2 seconds, we are going to sandwich the user input between two variables, a start time and response time. Start time is equal to the time, or world time at that moment, while response time is the difference between the current time and start time, which will tell us how long it took the user to answer the question. Same like before, a conditional controls our outcomes. If the question is answered correctly and in under 2 seconds, the user moves on to the next level. If the user answered correctly but over 2 seconds, death type slow occurs. In all other cases, it will lead to death type stupid. Level 2 test preparation's goal is to answer 3 out of 3 addition questions correctly. After introducing the level and its concept to the user, we are going to make a variable score that keeps track of the score. Then we are going to make a loop that will give 3 addition questions by repeating the code 3 times. First, it will print the question number with the number concatenated with the repetitions we are on. Then, we will make 2 variables, int1 and int2, that will randomly select 2 integers between 1 and 10. After that, the variable answer is the answer to int1 and int2 added together. The variable user lets the user to input their answer. Then the conditional will find out if the user is correct or not by comparing user to the answer and changing the score accordingly. Then after giving a line about the user's total score, it will use another conditional to see if the level's goal is met. If score is less than 3, it will result in death type oof. Otherwise, it leads to level 3. The function level 3 is called evil auntie, and the goal is to defeat evil auntie when she calls you fat. Again, we have another user input to the prompt, and a conditional will be in a try and except block that controls the outcome of each option. Option 1 leads to the side adventure fight, which we'll talk about in a moment. Option 2 leads to death type trapped. Option 3 leads to level 4, and option 4 leads to death type status. And again, if the user does not choose one of those choices, the conditional in the except block will reset level 3 until it receives a valid input. The function fight defines a side adventure fight. This function uses the same code techniques as level 3. This is just to add some variety, and if I had more time, I would expand this into a multi-level fight, but that's not something I could do. The only important things to mention here is that options 1, 2, and 3 leads to various types of deaths. Meanwhile, option 4 leads to that delicious emotional damage for evil auntie, which will also lead to the function level 4. Now level 4 is called stack time, and the goal is to find the global variable luck that will unlock a side adventure if true. Here, the user inputs an integer representing a food to eat, and same as before, a conditional inside a try except block controls the outcome. Option 1 results in luck being true, so the side adventure would be unlocked in level 5. Option 2 gives luck as false, which bypasses the side adventure. Option 3 gives a 50-50 chance of luck being true, and option 4 leads to death type weird, which again is defined by the function death. Let's move on to level 5, the test. Here, you pass no matter what, but I needed this function to make this really feel like a math game. After printing the level title and instructions, the user has to input a variable for which test they want to take. Now you can notice that the formatting for this level is a little bit different, in the fact that the user input variable test is under the try block. This is to make use of the dictionary easier. The dictionary establishes the highest integer value for each key. The variable called top value equals the value of the dictionary mode meaning when the key is defined by test selection. After making the variable for score, we can use top value in our question loop. Now this loop is exactly the same loop from level 3. The only difference is that there are 5 questions instead of 3, and the randomly generated integers are between 1 and the top value. Therefore, based on which test you chose, you could be doing summations up to 5, up to 10, up to 20, or in the hundreds if you choose the prodigy test. Skipping down, it will print your score and have some filler text to try and influence the user in the next level. The global luck variable comes into play in this conditional. If luck is true, the side level cheat opens up, and the score will most likely be boosted. Otherwise, an automatic point reductions occur. Again, the except block is there to reset the level if there's an invalid input for test. Side event or cheat is exactly like side event or fight. If the user chooses option 1 to cheat, they have a chance of dying or gaining extra points. If they choose not to cheat, they become the teacher's favorites and they get bonus points because I can do it. And if the user chooses anything else, the conditional in the except block resets cheat until it receives a valid input. The final level, function level 6, mother, is really a give me level. Using the same techniques as before, there is a slight chance of death type disappointment by trying to hide the test, but most options lead to the end card. And there is an except block to reset if the response is invalid. Now, I really wanted people to get to the end card because the function gives a happy message. Now, even though throughout this game there's this constant fear of death and you're not perfect enough and you're not doing well enough and it insults you whenever you do something wrong, by the end of it you really come to realize that this game and what it represents doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So we have a nice little end card, and it reaffirms that everything will be okay because you are loved, mattered, and cared for to the very end, no matter what. Then it prints the end card. Finally, you can see that we have the function thumbnail being called, which starts the chain reaction of the rest of the game. So with that being said, we are done, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye!